Dave, can I move this forward a hair?
Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. How are you? Hello, how you doing? Good morning. All my people in the green, good morning, everybody. Give yourselves a round of applause. Give yourselves a round of applause for being here. My name is Pastor BJ King, and we're going to get started in just a few moments. Does everybody have the packet? If you have the packet, look inside the packet. You'll find a small card that's a question card. What we want you to do, can you turn me up just a little bit? What we want you to do is if you have a question, thank you, here it is, this card here. If you have a question that you want addressed, write your question down on this card. And one of our people in the green, just hold it up when you're done. One of our staff in the green will come pick it up because we want to make sure that your concerns are being heard. But what we don't want to do is answer questions and ask intimate questions while all the cameras are rolling. All right? So if you will, if you have a question, let's fill it out now. They're passing pens around and all that. You can put your name on there. And if you want personal, to speak to someone personally, there's another card. Where's the other card? It's a little longer. It's in your packet as well. It's really important to know that the office is always open. The phone number, somebody will answer. This card here. You could fill out both just to be safe. All right? So question, the smaller card, and once you're done, hold it up and one of our staff will come get it. And then the other card, fill that out, and we'll make sure that we communicate, get in touch with you, and get this thing started. And I always ask in these meetings that everybody stand, everybody stand. I promise I won't ask you for money, but real quick, everybody stand, everybody stand. Do me this favor, find somebody here that you didn't come with, and just give them a hug. We all need a hug right now. No longer than 3 seconds, no longer than 3 seconds. And it's okay to hug our people in the green shirts too. They like hugs. They like hugs. Okay, last time before you sit, find one more person and give them a hug. Thank you. We'll get started in just a second.
All right. Well, I'm so glad you got to hear from Pastor BJ King. It's a great way to start our day off. Hi, folks. My name is Doug Boxer. I want to welcome you to our town hall meeting today. I appreciate you so much being here on a Saturday morning, especially under these circumstances, and you're dealing with everything that you're dealing with. I am, as I said, I'm a lawyer. Since 2017, I've been working for close to 20,000 people who have gone through, unfortunately, the same thing that you're going through. And I always start by saying I'm sorry, and then I realize that those are just words that everyone says to you, but it's hard to really convey in words what I feel. And part of what I feel is because while I've done this for 20,000 people and I've sat across the table from thousands of you who are going through the same thing, that day when that fire rampaged through your town, it also, a separate fire rampaged through Pacific Palisades in Malibu where my sister had a home and she lost her home. She was a renter without insurance, which is unfortunately the worst situation that you could possibly be in because you don't have access to the resources of that insurance will provide. So while I don't know firsthand personally what it feels like to be in your shoes, I can tell you that I have a family member that's gone through it, and I've also sat across the table from thousands of people who I've tried to help along with our team. So just wanted to provide that context for you. I am part of LA Fire Justice, which is a coalition of lawyers, advocates, experts, some of whom you will hear from today, all working together for one purpose: to get victims and survivors of the Eaton Fire the justice they deserved, because what happened to you by this wildfire was completely preventable. Completely preventable by a company that put its profits over your safety. And you should be angry about that. And in a second, you're going to hear from Mikal Watts, who will go through in great detail exactly how this fire started. And I hope by the time you leave here, it's our collective goal to make you understand what your rights are and to understand how we do this. We're not the only group of lawyers out here, obviously, but we've done this a lot, and we feel like we're pretty good at it, and we want you to leave here understanding how we do it, and then you make your own decision. You decide who to hire. And we will all be around, and I'll talk about our team in a second, as long as it takes to get your questions answered. Okay. Thank you for indulging me that few minutes. Really quickly, we're going to go through these items today. Again, it's all designed to make you understand what happened and why it matters and what you can do about it. You're going to hear from Mikal Watts, who's our lead trial lawyer and litigator. I will introduce him later. Mike Schultz, who's a fire cause and origin expert, one of the best in the world. That's me. Tia Rivera is one of our team members from Maui. I told you we were working over there. You're going to hear her compelling story about what she's gone through, and we hope you'll get a little bit of hope from her story. And then I now get to introduce Erin Brockovich. Now, Erin told me just before I started, just before I came up here, that she didn't want me to say anything nice about her. But I can't help myself. I met Erin in the 2000s when she was working with my mother, former Senator Barbara Boxer, on issues related to water contamination with some of the most terrible toxic stuff out there. And at that time, I only knew of her from obviously the movie, but I saw what she was able to do with my mom and was impressed. Well, fast forward 10 years, lo and behold, I'm in Santa Rosa, California, trying to help people who were burned out of house and home by PG&E. And it came to our group's attention, or our theory, well, why don't we try to call Erin Brockovich to see if she's available to help this community? So I think within about 30 seconds, Erin was in, partially because of who that defendant was, PG&E, and if you watch the movie, you know her history there. I can't think of a better person to help us represent you and your voice collectively to get the attention you deserve for Altadena, Pasadena, and parts of Sierra Madre. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Erin, and I think she's going to come and speak from down here. Hopefully I don't blow out any, but I want to introduce Erin Brockovich.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Doug. Can I talk here or on this?
Either one.
Either one. Wow, those lights are bright. Oh, am I supposed to stay behind this blue line or we get that big sound? Okay. I want to thank Pastor King for the hug session, because I really would love to come out and hug every one of you. And I really mean that. I said last night, and I'm going to let you know this morning, I find myself oftentimes so uncomfortable in these first opportunities to meet you, because everybody's been through such trauma. And you've been through so much. And it has broken my heart. I cannot imagine how you feel. And I want every one of you to know I am deeply sorry for all that you have been through. And remind you how much I admire all of you and the courage that you've had and the ordeal that you've been here, and to show up is so admirable. And I'm so happy that today you'll get to meet some people from Santa Rosa, because as you come out of this, and it takes such time, and I think that's the thing that's so hard for me, and where I so much want to be with the community, is that show of support, that you will get through this. As Doug said, I've been involved working in fires in this state since 2018, from the Tubbs Fire to the Paradise Fire to the Kincaid Fire to the Woosley Fire to the Thomas Fire to these fires. And I'm angry. I have a lot to say. I try to keep it in because you've been through enough. But as Doug said, this should have never happened. There was colossal failures across the board. And in this state and in these communities, we're well aware of certain conditions. And these utilities in every single fire, time after time after time again, it's a utility. And they know better. They should have known better. We have got to start dealing with infrastructure issues. We're not going to stop the winds. We're not going to stop climate change. But we can defend against it. And these companies have got to, on the upfront, get your ass busy getting these infrastructure issues resolved immediately. There was plenty of warning, and yet the failure occurred again. And I cannot again imagine how you are feeling, but I assure you I'm livid for you. And part of what I want you to know, and why this team is so important, is the work that they do just behind the litigation. And that is legislation. That is policy. That is looking at all of this to change things so this doesn't happen again. This has been the best fire team I have ever seen. From Doug to Mikal Watts to Christian Archer to this team. They are here for you. They have mobilized here. They're going to be on the ground here. They are not going to leave you. I am not going to leave you. This is a long process of healing. And we're here at every level to answer your questions, support, and get you through what will be one of the most difficult times you've had. I'm your neighbor. I live out by Agora Hills. I've been evacuated many times, been through the Woosley Fire. And part of what happens when I'm with you, I can feel your fear. I can feel the angst. These are terrifying moments in your life. And I want you to allow yourself to be afraid. We often, after situations like this, don't talk about, do we feel like we have PTSD? Why are we so jumpy? We begin to think, oh my gosh, is there another fire? Everything has changed. We have a lot of experience in that, and I want you to acknowledge the fear, the PTSD, the trauma. It's real. And I also want you to know there is absolute hope on the other side of this disaster. Everybody in Paris, in the Paradise, California fires, they've come back. They've rebuilt. Santa Rosa, Malibu, the Woosley fires, the Thomas fires, and so will you. So I'm so happy you're here today. I will be here all day. I could talk forever with you. Believe me, I will be out there getting a hug from every one of you before you go today. I want you to hear from Mikal. I'm so sorry for everything that you've been through. You are true heroes. And I want you to know, you will be the phoenix that's going to rise from the ashes. So thank you for being here this morning. And now I get to, oh, you're coming back, Doug? Do you want to come back? Come on, Doug. Is Mikal next, or you're going to introduce Mikal? Come on. Okay, so here's Doug again, but Michael's going to come out. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Erin. So Erin mentioned the team that's here. In the back, there are people wearing green LA Fire Justice shirts. Please raise your hand, turn around. They will be here for the entire time. If you have any questions, they are the people you will want to see. These are the people who will be working with you for the next number of years. I can't tell you exactly how long, but they will be here for as long as it takes. Now, I want to introduce Mikal Watts. You know, being in California, we obviously have gone through this type of thing over and over again. And being a Californian who loves California deeply, I know when people in my community are hurting and suffering and there's someone to hold accountable, that I need someone on my side who's on your side. You're gonna watch something, you're gonna see Mikal work up how we know what started this fire. And I want you to leave here at least hoping, I'm hoping that you leave here thinking that this is a lawyer you want fighting for you. He's done this numerous times, I'll talk about that. But I have turned to Mikal time and time again when this happens. So Mikal, why don't you come up and teach us all. Thank you.
Hi, guys. I'm Mikal Watts, and I want to start off by just telling you how sorry I am as to why we're here. If you are one of the unfortunate people whose house burned down, if you just raise your hand for a second. I do that because I want you to know you're not alone. You know you're not alone. Erin says there's hope. There is hope, but I'm here to tell you that hope is not a plan. We have the plan through the School of Hard Knocks. We've done this over and over again. This is my 22nd wildfire case in 7 states over the last 7 years. And you learn and you get better. But I guess my message is not to not have hope, but to know that this will turn around and you will rebuild better than ever. The author J.K. Rowling once said that rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life. And I know that you feel like what you've been through has you at rock bottom, and trust me, I've stood in enough rooms and I've seen the trauma in the eyes that I'm seeing right now. It's an unimaginable tragedy. And the sad part is it just did not have to happen. And so you'll note that this is the 8th of February, 31 days after the fire. I have a rule with my team. We don't do these meetings until 30 days have lapsed. I know you're getting deluged with cheesy lawyer ads. It makes me want to throw up. I stopped trying to defend our entire profession a long time ago. But as for my team, what we do is we spend the first 30 days throwing every resource we can at determining exactly what happened. And we hire the world's best experts. We put the resources on the ground because I have learned that these utilities over and over and over again will do everything to deny responsibility. And what Southern California Edison has done over the last 31 days is very typical of that kind of denial of responsibility. You'll recall that originally when the fire happened, they put out a press thing that says, well, our equipment was not involved. And then the pictures and the videos started showing up and, oh, that's not a problem because that line was de-energized. It wasn't us. Theory number 3, there were people, a human encampment. They were camping and they had a fire. And the fire must have started that. It wasn't us. So what I did was a little different. And we'll explain what we did, but to my left is a gentleman by the name of Michael Schultz. Mr. Schultz is perhaps the world's most accomplished fire cause and origin expert. I have been working with him since I had hair and his hair wasn't gray. He has spoken to juries in response to my questions as far back as the 1990s. And every single wildfire that happens, we go through a protocol that I want to explain to you, because in a court of law, we have the burden of proof. We have to prove two things. We have to prove liability, and we have to prove damages. Liability is who's at fault, who done it, okay? And so we have to do what your doctors do when they're assessing your condition. They do what's called a differential diagnosis, and they eliminate other causes. So the first thing we asked, was there lightning out there that day? Could this have been a lightning strike? There wasn't. Was there any industrial equipment out there? One of these roads that could have sparked? There wasn't. Was there any human traffic out there? Potential arson or a cigarette butt or a campfire? There wasn't, and I'll show you this, okay? So what we do is we get the information from Elon Musk, in effect, all those satellites that are looking down at us at all times, and you can see the direction when these fires start, where the smoke is blowing. And you go back to the start where the smoke isn't, and you map an XY coordinate, and that'll tell you the approximate location of the fire. And then Mr. Schultz and I get together, and we overlay to see whether there's electrical utility infrastructure. And in your fire, it's dead on right there. And so we know that presumptively that's a potential ignition source. And then the journey begins. The reconstruction begins, okay? So what I want to do is, and I won't do this always, but I think it's so important that when a tragedy like this happens, that people like myself and other people in the legal community treat you with absolute respect, okay? And I'm not talking about cheesy internet ads with people running from a fire and a wheelbarrow full of money falling down, all this garbage that I've seen. And I'm sorry you're getting that. The respect is you deserve to know exactly what happened. So I'm going to spend the next 45 minutes or so taking you through what we've done over the last 30 days, because you deserve, before you start that foundation of reconstructing your life, you deserve to know what happened, why your life was completely upended, why your homes were burned to the ground, why 17 of you lost loved ones, why another 23 of you have burn injuries, why it destroyed almost the entire town of Pasadena. You deserve that as a community. And so let's start with what happened. And what I want to do is I want to start with the cause and origin. This is a phrase that Mr. Schultz uses, cause and origin, okay, of the Eaton Fire. And then I'm going to get into who can be held accountable under California's law, and you have special laws here that are very good. And we'll go through that. And through that use of the court system, how you can recover what you have lost from the entity that caused the fire that burned up your home, for example, okay? So let's start with the area of ignition. Now, if you've had a TV on in the last 10 days, we did a press conference on January the 27th, where we came out here just for the press and showed them what we'd learned. And the reason is that there was all sorts of disinformation being peddled by Southern California Edison, and we knew demonstrably it wasn't true. They have an obligation to file reports with the Public Utilities Commission of the state of California when their stuff, their equipment, their utility infrastructure may be involved. And all they did is said, me no Alamo, to use a phrase from Texas. Okay, it's not me. And they said it over and over again it's like a game of whack-a-mole. They pop up a different lie, and we have to beat it down, and another one pops up, we have to beat it down, and eventually they're going to be out of excuses, and we're getting them there through cooperation with what I call the Fourth Estate. Your press here in Los Angeles and nationally has done an outstanding job ferreting through the nonsense and working together with us and others to get to the truth. What do we know about the Eaton Fire? You don't need me to tell you this. It burned down 14,000 acres, destroyed 9,418 structures, damaged another 1,073. We lost 17 souls, 9 serious burn injuries, and because of the good work of firefighters not only from the state of California, but firefighters as far east as North Carolina, fought the fire and it's finally contained. So now we have to figure out why it happened and start the process of rebuilding. Doug and I came here about 6 days after the fire on the 13th of January, as is appropriate. The police officers, the National Guard is trying to keep people out of the area of danger, okay? I know there's a big to-do about they won't let me back on my land to do X or Y or Z, it's my land. Just trust me when I tell you that when your homes burn down, the PVC piping burns down, the copper wires burn down, they all become these toxic mix of things you don't want to be breathing, dioxins and the like. Does anybody remember that train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio last year? We represented several thousand people in that. What was released or vented from those trains after the derailment became a very cancerous cocktail of dioxin, okay? So there's a protocol that safety experts have established about we've got to go through each of these properties and in effect detoxify it where it's even safe for you to be there, okay? So they kept us out and that was appropriate, but we got the general bearings. But the real value of that trip was we started collecting photographs and videos by your neighbors. One of your neighbors, my buddy Jeffrey Koo's right here. His wife comes into the house, come out here, we've got a problem. Thanks for coming, it's good to see you. And they shoot invaluable video. A lot of your other neighbors shoot videos from different perspectives. And when I mean perspectives, different points along the dial, if you will. So we're all looking at the thing from different angles. That is invaluable information for me. Mike Schultz, a gentleman from Texas that I use in a lot of these cases. Another woman that does a lot of work out here. I've been climbing up and down that mountain for weeks, collecting evidence, photographing. We've had drones flying over that transmission tower. And we literally were documenting evidence for 2 reasons. Number one, after several days of us being out there, we were banned from going in anymore. They said, you're not allowed in. I didn't care because we had already documented the scene, okay? But the second thing is, and I've been to Los Angeles a couple hundred times. Yesterday was probably the 3rd time I've flown out here where it wasn't perfect skies. But rain after a wildfire forever changes the evidence. And so one of the reasons we've got experts out here combing the scene of the source, in effect, is to document the evidence before the rain changes it, okay? And fortunately, we got that work done before the rains came, okay? Now, what did we find? We found a lot of photos and videos, people that put it on the internet, God bless you, people that gave Mike, people that gave our other experts photos that they took, videos that they took, and it was real obvious to me that this was a no-brainer, that this was Southern California Edison, but they were still publicly saying it wasn't. So we started cooperating with a gentleman by the name of Ivan Penn at the New York Times, Catherine Blunt from the Wall Street Journal, Jeff Feely from Bloomberg, and we're supplying them these videos and the photos to get the word out that this utility is feeding you a line of nonsense. And the stories start. And they start raising questions, and you see that he was nice enough to give us credit, and Jeffrey, you're on there in the article, that was your video, and all these different things. We're trying to get the information out to you as fast as we can, okay? We had the press conference on January the 27th, and the real reason that we did that, and I don't typically do that, is they had the gall to put out a story that somebody was out there camping. And that's what burned down all your houses. And we knew demonstrably that wasn't true. And so literally, I had the flu. Hopefully I didn't infect anybody. Came out here, my voice was cracking, but we got the word out. And then Southern California Edison's story immediately starts to change. We said in that press conference there being a fault on the line at 6:10 and 59 seconds, a second at 6:11 and 02 seconds, that we talked to witnesses that saw 2 different flashes 3 seconds apart at the same location, and all of the information was starting to fit. So we put that out there so that people could see whether or not what we were saying is true. And what we learned when we overlaid the electrical utility infrastructure, we know where the area of origin was, and it's right along a transmission line between the Goodrich substation and the Gould substation. That's the area of interest. If it's not lightning, if it's not arson, there's no campfire where the area of origin was. There's no other ignition source. The only possible ignition source left is the utility equipment. And so we started combing that utility equipment in a very detailed way. Because we put out the word, the New York Times starts to report about these faults. And there were faults at 6:11. Their new defense is those faults were 12 miles away. It couldn't possibly have played a role. That's nonsense. It's electrically connected. You've heard about the speed of light. Electricity doesn't travel that fast, but it's like instantaneous, and Mike can talk to you about that. We settled a case for $550 million in Oregon called the Archie Creek Fire. And it started from a fault that was 42 miles away, but it was electrically connected. And we'll talk about the consequence of that. Now, there's a group called Whisker Labs, and you don't know this, but they have millions of sensors along electrical lines throughout the United States. They are very helpful in detecting faults in those lines, and they've done it now in 3 or 4 different fires. They helped us solve the Maui fire. They helped us solve this. They helped us solve some of the others. But they see the 2 faults at 6:10:59 and 6:11:02. We get that out there, and the utility has to change its tune. There were no faults in our system that day. Oh yeah, we had a fault at 6:11, but oh, it's not related. Of course it's related. Southern California Edison then, under statute and rules, has to update their disclosure to the Public Utilities Commission. They did that on the same day as my press conference, and they said some interesting things. For the first time, the story was there were no faults in our equipment. Now we acknowledge there was a fault at 6:11 p.m. on the Eagle Rock Gould 220 kilovolt line. So we're making progress. There were 2 faults, but at least they're admitting to 1. But now they're selling the SOPA, which is 12 miles away. That can't be, which is just electrically nonsense. And we'll show you why. All right. The press starts doing really good work. NBC News has done outstanding work. Your ABC affiliate, Channel 7, has done outstanding work. Everybody's on them. And the bottom line is that now, as of the 28th, the day after our press conference, everybody's acknowledging this probably started from a fault in a line. So we're making baby steps. Let's keep going in time. Where is the area of origin? This is a photograph that Mr. Schultz took, and you see 3 different transmission towers up, halfway up that hill. Let's call the one on the left transmission tower number 1, the one in the middle transmission tower number 2, the one on the right, which is shorter, kind of stockier, transmission tower number 3. Keep transmission tower number 3 foremost in your minds, okay? And I'm going to show you why here in a second. Those towers are along transmission circuits that are referenced on the right side, and you keep the East Mesa Sylmar. See how it says deactivated? Now, Southern California Edison's new defense is it couldn't have been the start of this fire. That line had been deactivated. 2 problems with that. Number one, it's true they deactivated it 54 years ago in 1971. But they kind of put themselves in a new soup, and that is there is a CPUC general order that says you just can't abandon lines and leave all that garbage out there because it presents a hazard. You have to take it down. And you don't have to be Clarence Darrow to realize that if a transmission tower started a fire, if you'd taken down that transmission tower 53 years ago, it wouldn't have started the fire. We have evidence that they told the CPUC they were going to take it down in 2013, 11 years ago, and they never got to it. All right. So those two high voltage towers provide power to tens of thousands of people across the area. Perched behind them on a now brown barren ridge is a third smaller low voltage tower known as M16T1. When I say transmission tower number 3, it's actually M16T1. It's been idle since 1971 according to the company, and we agree with that. What's the evidence that we collected? I'm going to brag on Schultz for a second. The fire where I first met Erin Brockovich was the Tubbs fire. It was one of 17 fires that started in 2017 north of San Francisco. And boy, was I thrilled being a big Julia Roberts fan. I said, man, nobody hates PG&E like Erin Brockovich. Wouldn't it be cool if we could work with her? And Boxer says, well, I know her. And it's right, she was there in 30 minutes, and we've been best buddies ever since. My wife accuses me of living in California because I have a crush on Erin Brockovich. And I'm going to plead guilty. I love the lady. She's fabulous. And she's fabulous for you because we're going to be pursuing your claims under a doctrine known as inverse condemnation. And I'll tell you all about that. But when PG&E burned down half the town of Santa Rosa in 2017, they were so in politically. They had the gall to introduce a bill in the California legislature to statutory eliminate inverse condemnation, take away your right to sue them. Erin, community organizer like nobody I've ever seen, gets all of our clients and basically charges the hill in Sacramento and raises untold hell. Threatening, cajoling, advocating. And that bill did not pass. And good thing it didn't, because in 2018, PG&E burned down 14,000 houses. You guys have seen it with Southern California Edison, Thomas, Woolsey, Bobcat, and now Eaton. She and the people that worked with her against that legislation are the reason you have a cause of action. So you're damn right I have a crush on her. What she does matters. Okay? So one of the things that Schultz did in 2017 is he literally canvassed the area around the start of where we were saying PG&E started the Tubbs fire. Everybody else was just waiting around on CAL FIRE to tell us what happened. Schultz was out there for 6 months interviewing every witness within miles of that point of origin, collecting every video from every witness, every photograph of every witness, and we did our own fire cause and origin investigation that showed it was PG&E. And that turned out to be really important because a year later, CAL FIRE said PG&E, they didn't do it. And they were just flat out wrong. Because of the work that was done in that case, Santa Rosa is now rebuilt. More than $5.5 billion went into that community. An entire town rose from the ashes because we didn't wait around. On CAL FIRE, we did our own investigation. Well, Schultz is doing that here for you. He's been out there. He's been interviewing. We've been talking. As I told you, ABC Channel 7's done an outstanding job. They put out a story, and they quoted some people. Look at this timeline. Brandon Ford at 610 says his power flickered. His power flickered. You're going to get that when you get these kinds of faults. Harry Kurtanian says his mother told him she saw the power lines sparking. So we have a witness that says there's sparking. And Mama was right. It was sparking at 6:11 when the fault information came out. So now we have a situation where the electrical fault information from Whisker Labs is matching the eyewitness testimony. Okay? And that's good. Max Bellin, was the neighbor who saw a flash of light followed by a small blaze at the tower's base. So we have multiple people from different angles describing, in effect, the same thing. A fault, flickering, sparking, which you get from arcing, and we'll explain how that happens. That sparking ignites dried out grasses at the base of the tower, which leads to a fire, which in high winds leads to a wildfire, which leads to a calamity that incinerated most of your town. So we're building the case. We're talking to witnesses. We put out with Penn that the faults at 610, 611 coincided with 2 flashes in the vicinity of the transmission lines, as seen in a video captured by a camera at an Arco gas station in the moments before the Eaton Fire began. And let me show you this video. My buddy Jerry Singleton shared this with us. That light up there is a street light. Don't worry about that. There's the light, okay? And he puts out this video, and everybody says, well, that's interesting. Well, here's what we had already done. Schultz and the other experts that we work with literally made a 3D map of that entire mountain range. Every undulation, every slope, we've got it down to a fraction of an inch. We know exactly where everything is. We know where the transmission lines are. We, through pixelation, digitally placed where everything is. So we could then superimpose the videos that Jeffrey and other people took. Jeffrey's wife took it, right? But my point is this. We know where he was when he shot that video. We know where his house was. We know where the other pictures are. And because we have a 3D animation, if you will, it's not really an animation, it's a 3D rendering, we can then superimpose those videos to where we know the transmission towers are and see whether it lines up. So we took this Arco video and we sent somebody out. This is a gentleman by the name of Eric Fitzsimmons with Aperture in Dallas. And he lined up during the day all of the street lights, the gasoline pumps, and then we put our animation in, and we used a principle called photogrammetry to map the image pixels to the 3D scan data that we had already done. And we lined it all up, and we know the orientation where this video was because it's a security camera. We shoot it again, and then we go to the site. We've already animated all this through 3D pixelation. We know what's out there. You've already seen Mike Schultz's pictures of these 3 transmission towers, right? And we know exactly where they are. And so through this pixelation process, we can then orient where this utility equipment is, bring back to the point where the camera is, and line up the video that the Arco security station video shows with where we know the transmission lines were. And watch what we learned. It's stunningly consistent with the 3 eyewitnesses that I talked to you about. We're back at the security camera. Now we're going to play the video again. Forget about the street light again when it comes on. Where did the flash at 6:10:59 come from? There's the flash. The top of the transmission tower, number 3. Where did the flash 3 seconds later at 6:11:02 come from? Second flash, identical location, top of transmission tower number 3. This video continues 15, 20 seconds later, and there is a fire that you can see in the video after the 2 flashes. That's a little bit down from where the flashes were, where the arcing was, and we'll show that just real quick. And that's the fire at the base of transmission tower number 3. And then as this video continues, you can see the fire coming down the hill toward your homes, and I'm not going to put you through that, okay? But the bottom line is we now have very precise videographic evidence that shows where the sparking took place, where the fire began, and it is the best BS detector that I've ever seen in doing this. I don't know how Southern California Edison can, with a straight face, say that our equipment was not involved, right? So now they're backstroking. They're on excuse number 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's look and see what we say. So this gentleman, interviewed by Channel 7, says by 6:13, a neighbor called to say there was a fire under the power line. You can see that in the video now, right? So what the eyewitness is saying he saw is lined up with real video that is indisputable. And as I told the New York Times, the fault data, the videos, the witness accounts, all paint the exact same picture. I probably reconstructed 100 fires by now. I'm telling you, in representing 21,000 fire survivors and 22 different wildfires that we've been involved in, this is the best evidence that I've ever seen. Okay? It is excellent. And why is it important? If I were to ask for a raise of hands, and don't do this, and I said, who else has filed a lawsuit before now? Virtually no hands would go up, okay? Most of us aren't in the legal system because of all the ads you see. I see why people make fun of lawyers. I get all the lawyer jokes. I do. I tell them. I stopped trying to defend the entire profession a long time ago, but I am telling you that what we are doing here is righteous litigation. It's not frivolous lawsuits. It is righteous litigation backed up by the facts, and it's also important. There were 3 guys you may have heard of, Washington, Jefferson, and Madison, that refused to sign off on the ratification of our United States Constitution until the 7th Amendment right to a civil jury trial was embedded in the Bill of Rights. What we're doing here is constitutional. There's nothing shameful about it if this is a righteous lawsuit. So instead of barraging you with a bunch of internet ads with wheelbarrows of money and all this nonsense you've been hit with, we've been focused on, is this a righteous lawsuit? Is it something that we want to put our name behind? And more importantly, is it something that we can convince you want to put your name behind? It is the way we will rebuild this town. Let's keep going. This information is not only being analyzed by my expert. There's a guy in Oregon named Robert McCullough who I respect a lot. I've known him for 20 years. He's looking at the Whisker Labs data. Everything that we've had puts us at the same tower. All the pieces are coming together. Your video, the other videos, it all comes together. We have other videos shot by Adrian Timoran at 2297 Sinclair. This video is shot at 6:14:50. And as we try to tie that video in, we do the same thing. We know where the Timoran residence is. We have the 3D pixelation so we can swing the digital perspective to where her camera was. And we can say, well, okay, this is a different angle than the ARCO station. Does it line up as well? And so we go to where Ms. Timoran was taking the video at 6:14:50, which is about 3.5 minutes in, and we orient the camera, and we can see where her video lines up. So you have the exact same picture, just 90, 100 degrees away, showing the same thing. And this is the video that was taken at 6:14. Now, she continues to take video, and she does that at 6:18, and you can see the fire's kind of growing to the left from transmission tower number 3 towards transmission tower number 2. She shoots it again at 6:19:23. You can see it spread under transmission tower number 2. It's going downhill. By the way, what direction do the Santa Ana winds blow? Okay, it's being pushed down the hill by 100-mile-an-hour wind gusts. The final video she shot was at 6:19:50. All of this is pixelated. All of it's lined up, and all of it shows a fire that started exactly where the security camera at ARCO says. On this line, Tower 3, sparks, leads to a fire at the base of Tower 3, and we'll talk about why. Mike Schultz has got really good data on this. But you can take these images over time and you can see the spread of the fire. This is going to become real important when we deal with their human encampment nonsense. Okay? And so we collected a bunch of videos. Jennifer Erico at 619. Here's Jeffrey and his wife. They posted this. I'm not going to show much of this because you don't have to be put through this, but just enough. And it is holy shit. I'm sorry he's cussing at us, but I'd be too. It's scary, right? It's terrifying. And so he shoots it for a long time. Thank you for doing that, okay? We scour the internet for people like Jeffrey's video, for photographs, for social media and the like. And so far we've collected 14 different orientations. We only know of 15, and one of them has been given by a witness to CAL FIRE. Won't give it to anybody else. We'll get it, but it's just going to be confirmatory. We've got enough. We're not guessing, okay? Pedro Riojas has a cell phone video shot at 621. And so again, we know where all these are taken. Here's another one that was on the ABC 7. This is kind of my favorite picture. I don't know who took it. I know it was at 621, but you can see all those lines. It kind of tells the story, picture's worth 1,000 words. This picture tells me everything I need to know. And so we have other videos, and we've got them all together. Cell phone video by a lady named Bridget. We've got the addresses so we can orient the videos and the like, okay? Jeffrey's video shoots back on at 625. By then, it's taken off. We won't go through it, but he shoots for minutes and minutes and minutes, which is very helpful as they're getting their stuff out of their house. A guy named Juan Gonzalez shoots this at 6:30. Again, no need to show all of these, but the bottom line is it allows us to take all of these digital videos, iPhones, pixelate them, match up the pixels, stabilize the video, and then homogenate, or there's something called concatenate, which is some fancy word. I don't know what it means. Put all together. And so we do that, and this video is not working for some reason. It works on my computer, but not on this one. But the bottom line is it'll show the progression of the fire. So, conclusion number one, the area of ignition origin for the Eaton Fire is the base of transmission line number 3. Full stop. I doubt there's anybody in this room that has any doubt in their mind that what I just said is true, because you believe your eyes, okay? Number 2, just a minute on this human encampment site. This is the whole reason we did the press conference. I was just disgusted, because when a major multi-billion-dollar corporation puts out nonsense, they know better. They say it's not our equipment. It appears that a campsite was occupied shortly before the Eaton Fire ignited. This is garbage. But we have to chase it down in this game of whack-a-mole. They send us a letter. They made the mistake of telling me the XY coordinates, not knowing that we had already digitally reconstructed the entire map, so we knew where to go. So within 5 minutes, we're at this campfire. And of course, you have this gulp when you get something like that. Oh my gosh, we spent all this time and money, and it's a campfire? Are you serious? Well, they send us some pictures, and sure enough, there's a campfire. Problem is, it's in the wrong location. It's not anywhere close to where this fire started. You can see at the top of this picture, 300 yards below where the videos say the fire started. So it's just a red herring. There's the picture of their guy, the aha moment as he caught the campfire that's going to save this utility billions of dollars. Right. But it's in the wrong location. We did the work to show the direction of the Santa Ana winds, that the human encampment is not anywhere close. It's below. If this were going to start the fire and match with the video, it would have to run up against the winds, which it doesn't do. It's 1,400 feet away from the site of the origin. This is why we digitize all this. So don't worry about this campfire. Somebody was telling me yesterday, they were a hiker. He said, you ever been up there? That's the, it's so steep, nobody would climb up there to try to start a fire. It's too rigorous. Look at that square right there. It's a 50% grade. It'd be like walking up the side of a pyramid. To go start a fire, it doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense from the standpoint of the Santa Ana winds, and it certainly doesn't make any sense because we have to believe our lying eyes, right? It's not in the right location. So don't worry about this campfire. It's nonsense, okay? All right. Second question. Under California law, who can be held accountable and why? What we know is this. We've already shown that the area of ignition is tower number 3. The flashes are up at the top, and Mike Schultz will explain that to you in a second. The fire is first visible from the base. We'll explain how that happened in a second. And the fire propagates down the hill. Okay? That is done. All right? They've got a problem. That transmission tower and line was not even supposed to be there. And I'm embarrassed that I missed this until I read this article in the Washington Post on February the 1st. And this gentleman who lives amongst you is the former program manager for the California Public Utilities Commission's Electric Safety and Reliability branches. And he says that shows recent problems with the line that's supposed to be abandoned. That's a red flag. I call up Schultz. Schultz finds the following rule. This is General Order Number 5, Section 31.6, abandoned lines. Lines or portions of lines permanently abandoned shall be removed by their owners. Full stop. Why? So that such lines shall not become a public nuisance or a hazard to life and property. That's exactly why we're here. Okay? That stuff shouldn't even have been up there. If it wasn't up there, it wouldn't have started your fire. Transmission line number 3, how did it start the fire? It became energized, providing the source of ignition. I want to stop here for a second and hand the mic to Mike Schultz. Again, I think he's the best fire cause and origin guy in the world. He has been hired by insurance companies, by lawyers. He's been involved in fire litigation in all 50 states. He is the man, and there's a reason for it. And let him describe to you some of the work that he's done. Mike, if you'd come up here, we'll take him through some of the pictures that you guys have found. Oh, yeah.
Okay, there we go. So if you were following the story so far, we know what tower is involved. It's Tower 3. But Tower 3 carries an electrical circuit that was de-energized. There is normally not electricity flowing through it. So the next part of the analysis was, are we certain that one of the conductors on Tower 3 was the source of ignition? Now, we didn't show you all of this analysis, but you've probably figured out by now, this is a very scientific process. We have to follow the scientific method. And so these few minutes of analysis you're saying is the result of hundreds of hours of analysis on computers with photographs. Not only were we able to determine that it was Tower 3, we know the specific conductor on Tower 3 where the arcs came from. So what we had to do is we followed that circuit from the area of origin, and then we started taking a look at that tower, looking for evidence that something had happened, because the other thing we're going to have to prove is that that tower or one of the lines on that tower got energized, had electricity flowing through it when it wasn't supposed to be. And that's the hazard of leaving the lines up. If the lines are taken down, there's no lines for electricity to get transferred to flow through the system. So what we started seeing from the ground is we started seeing that there was evidence of heat and arc damage on some of the components. This is the conductor. That's really the center of this case. And what we saw where it attaches to the tower, because when they terminated the line, they clipped the lines, they put these connectors on it, and then they bolt them to the tower. The purpose of that is, if the tower is properly grounded, has a pathway to ground, if something happens on this line, the electrical current will follow the conductor, get to the tower, go down the tower and go into the ground and be safe. So that grounding is what protects us from electrocutions and supposed to protect us from fires. So we see that there's arcing damage going up there, and that heat energy created by the arcing has discolored the tower. And it's done it both above the connector and below the connector. So we know that what we're seeing is definitely electrical damage. Now, how did we see this? We photographed this using drones, and we photographed it using long telephoto lenses that it actually takes a second person to hold it while you're taking the picture. Because that's the only way we could do it without going up the towers. And so this is evidence of electrical arcing and the heating effects of that electrical arcing. So this proves that that circuit, that conductor, was carrying electricity. It got energized prior to this fire. So then we followed the transmission lines to the other end of this circuit. And we get to this tower, which is some distance away from the other substation. So originally, this power line went all the way through. I think we went through 6 towers, so we had to climb all the mountains in between, look at each tower, and we were following all 3 conductors, but we're really interested in the one conductor that had the electrical activity on it. And this is where it ends. So it's not connected to the substation. That was our first thought. Our first thought was, maybe these guys didn't really terminate this circuit. They just grounded it at one end, but it's still connected to the substation. But that wasn't the case. So when we get to this next tower, we're doing the same process. Is there evidence of electrical damage? The very first thing we saw is that the connectors at this end of those conductors, they're not attached to the tower like they're supposed to be. They're not grounded to the tower. They were flying around in the wind when we got there. So the entire de-energization of that line, there's a process, there's a protocol for de-energizing electric lines. Southern Cal Edison didn't follow it. This is very sloppy work. Every electrical utility engineer I showed this to said, this is just unbelievable sloppy work. So then we start looking around at this end of the conductor, and we're looking at the same conductor. Here's some of the evidence where arcing occurred, and it actually melted out some of the metal and elongated those holes, because we're talking about very high voltage. So now we know there was electrical activity, this line got energized, and we also know from the degree of the damage that it was high voltage. So it's power coming from a transmission line, not a distribution line, not the kind of lines you would see in your neighborhood. We already had a pretty good idea that the source of power was from transmission lines because of the bright flashes. When a distribution line, like you'd see in your neighborhoods, arcs, they are not that dramatic events. But when you get these white flashes that light up the hillside and can be seen for miles and miles, that's a high voltage electrical arc. And so we already knew that we were on the hunt to find a transmission line that did it. More evidence. The end of that conductor, this is one of the lines are just hanging, melting and deformation. More damage on the inside of the tower. This tower had a bunch of things to keep the birds off and keep people from climbing it. And then here's the best photograph that we ever took. This is the same conductor that I showed you at the other end in the area of origin. This is the opposite end. And you can see that the arcing was so severe there, it actually melted the conductors. And so we had a loss of mass. So now we know that we have high voltage current flowing this entire length of this ungrounded, improperly grounded, improperly terminated tower. Just some more pictures of the arcing. So arcing is where electricity has taken a path it's not supposed to take. So let's say both ends of this line were properly attached to the towers, and that both towers were properly grounded, and somehow electricity got into that line. It could be from a lightning strike. The electricity would follow that path and go to ground. You wouldn't see this arcing. And what happens when you get the arcing, it also means that there's high resistance, and you get what's called high resistance heating. You turn your toaster on in your house and you see those wires heat up and they go bright red. That they are intentionally creating that fault and that high resistance heating so that you can cook your toast. So the next step in the process was to analyze how did that line get energized. And the biggest clue is it's right next to all those other high voltage lines. They run right next to each other. And so Michael's going to share with you what we determined is the way that the electricity strayed, because I also use the term stray voltage, from the energized lines to that de-energized line.
So Mike Schultz, a decade ago, lived in Chicago. He has worked on so many wildfires that he literally moved to the state of California. He lives in Sacramento. He is available on a moment's notice to investigate these fires. And the reason for that is that you're starting to see this isn't some simple thing. We have to meet a burden of proof in a court of law. We have to prove what we say. And this kind of early work, I think, allows us to do that. And one of the things that has come out in the Washington Post, another possibility is that Tower M16T1, that's Tower 3, might have re-energized from another decommissioned tower that stands very close to the Eagle Rock Gould circuit where the fault was detected. And what does that mean? They had a fault in the line. They say it's 12 miles away. I don't care. The one in Oregon was 42 miles away. It takes seconds, fractions of a second for electricity to travel there. On that tower, there are black marks. Many of the wire tips are broken and appear to be melted. If that de-energized tower was not properly grounded, if it could have absorbed energy from the fault and sent it straight back to the Eaton Canyon, which is what it did. So you have this surge of electricity that comes in from the fault. We supplied these photographs, put them out in the public, because I wanted to make sure that we were right. And the Washington Post did something very interesting. They took our photographs that show the signs of recent arcing, and they sent them to 5 other people that don't know Mikal Watts, that are independent utility and fire ignition experts. Each of them confirmed that the arc marks that these guys took appear to be fresh. In other words, it's not dated, aging over time. It's fresh from arcing. They also explained how this long idle infrastructure could have re-energized. Mike mentioned something about the failure to properly ground. This is an essential part of protecting you from wildfire. Now, position number 1 is what the rules say. That transmission tower should have never been out there. It hadn't been used. It was abandoned 53 years ago. It had no utility. It had no purpose. It had been abandoned, and under CPUC rules, it should not have even been there. But if you're going to have it there, you have to make sure it's grounded on both ends of the transmission where it was tied off, both at the point of origin over near the Gould. Just sloppy work, as he puts it. Our guys were out there taking pictures. Lots of other people have been out there. It's been a very collective effort. Mike works with all these other experts for your insurance companies who will file their own lawsuit. We're very aligned with them in terms of trying to figure out what caused these losses. But one of the things that was observed is you see this cable that appears to be fried on the bottom end as it abuts the ground. There's all sorts of vegetation at the base of that transmission tower number 3. It ignites, it's dry, catches on fire. It's just like kindling wood. The Post, in addition to sending our photos out to 5 experts, took their own photographs. They reference a thick metal wire that extends from one leg of the tower and lies exposed in the dirt. Its frayed ends are sticking into scorched and blackened brush. Pretty good circumstantial evidence of what happened. 2 different utility experts said that is unsafe, and the reasons are obvious. It's not good grounding. It can lead to an ignition at that point. There's also a concept known as electromagnetic induction. Let me try to explain this to you, but the bottom line is, you remember we have transmission tower 1 and 2 that are both energized. The distance between these towers is enormous. Over the years, those lines start to sag if they're not properly maintained. They swing in high wind. One of the failure modes that leads to wildfires that's well recognized is a concept known as line slap, where one line hits another line in the wind and slaps, creates a spark, ignites a fire. Another thing that happens when you get this swing is you get electromagnetic induction, where the electricity will literally jump between transmission line number 2 to transmission line number 3. And all the experts that we talk about are talking about this electromagnetic induction. Now, to be clear, we're trying to get the data, something called the SCADA data, from Southern California Edison that'll tell us exactly what was flowing through when the faults were. They're playing a little game with us in the court where they're giving us kind of the Cliff's Notes instead of the book. We need the core data. We'll get it soon, but I'm very confident that this is going to be confirmatory. But the bottom line is swaying in violent winds, the energy can jump into the de-energized wire and electrify it. All of this is going out. We're making our information available to the public, all the other lawyers. I don't care. I want the truth out. Every time we put out the truth, Southern California Edison is under an obligation, under your laws, to report updated information. And so we see theory number 2, theory number 3, theory number 4. The most recent letter was on February the 6th, 2 days ago, and we're making progress. It's baby steps getting the truth out of these guys, okay? But 2 days ago, they finally admit electrical data indicates that a fault was detected at approximately 6:11 p.m. on the Eagle Rock Gould 220 kilovolt line, which connects the Gould substation to the Eagle Rock substation. Southern California Edison's system protection devices detected this fault, opened to isolate it, but an earlier attempt to disable the automatic reclosing function was unsuccessful. That is a bunch of engineering gibberish that says we're right. And we are right, and they know it. Electromagnetic induction is one of the possibilities. We won't know that it's a probability until we get the data. Could be other reasons that this was energized, and we'll get to you with respect to that. The same letter says, preliminary analysis shows that because Southern California Edison's transmission system is networked, the fault on this geographically distant line caused a momentary and expected increase in the current in Southern California Edison's transmission system, including on the 4 energized lines at M6T1 and M24T3. That's an engineering way of saying that surge is electrically connected to where the point of origin is. Southern California Edison assigned field observers who are qualified electrical workers to monitor and visually observe the lines at Eaton Canyon from a distance. They observed a small flash of white light upon each re-energization, which appeared to be in the vicinity of the M24T3 structure, carrying the Mesa Vincent number 1, 220 kilovolt, and Goodrich Gould 220 kilovolt lines, and the M16T1 structure, carrying the Mesa Silmar transmission line. Translation, we're right. Okay? As much as I want to applaud them for coming clean, it's really hard to do so after the previous letters are selling soap like a campfire in a human encampment. But, you know, we're getting there. This is important. Southern California Edison is evaluating a number of potential causes, including whether the idle Mesa Silmar transmission line could have become energized, e.g., through induction, and the extent to which that line or its grounding could be related to the cause of the fire. Notice that footnote 1 after the word grounding. While Southern California Edison's investigation remains ongoing, Southern California Edison has taken immediate steps to further strengthen and standardize its grounding practices with respect to idle lines. Now, why would you do that if your investigation didn't show you had improper grounding that started this fire? Okay? So in 31 days, we're kind of getting to the core of the matter. The core of the matter is, on the 5th of February, Sitting in Texas, I got the red flag notice that all of you all got, and I noticed something different. These red flag notices happen 2 or 3 times a year. You all know what they are now. Santa Ana winds are going to be heavy. We have to be vigilant. It's almost like Smokey the Bear with the high fire risk, be careful with fires, right? It's the electronic utility version of that. But this one was different. This is only the second one I've ever seen where the notice comes out in such a way, the Santa Ana winds are going to be so strong, it's like a nuclear red flag warning. It was so dangerous. It was unlike anything that's almost ever been seen, so everybody needed to be on guard. There were steps that should have been taken, electrical plans that should have been implemented that were not. And so the bottom line is, transmission line number 3 became energized, providing the source of the ignition. You know where the ignition is. We can see it in the videos. So what's the consequence in terms of why legally they're accountable? This is California's inverse condemnation law. Let me explain what that is. A lot of you have heard about the constitutional idea that the government can't take your private property without just compensation. It's in the Constitution. California has it in its Constitution. California courts have interpreted that. It says the government includes state-regulated utility monopolies, of which Southern California Edison is one. So when a state-regulated utility monopoly like PG&E, Southern California Edison, San Diego Gas and Electric starts a fire that burns down your property, it's akin to the government taking your property, and they must compensate you. Inverse condemnation is the doctrine. That doctrine still exists because of that lady I have a crush on, and a whole bunch of people who advocated with her to save it. Okay? So, California's inverse condemnation law for decades has said, look, a governmental entity may be held strictly liable irrespective of fault when a public improvement constitutes a substantial cause of plaintiff's damages, even if it's only one of the causes. So what does that mean? It means that if I can prove their equipment started the fire, they are strictly liable for the damage caused by the fire, the property damage. Okay? Inverse condemnation. So I think you'll probably agree with me that we're there. And I want you all, when you look inside yourselves and you decide whether you want to become involved in this community effort to make this utility accountable, I want you to feel good about it. You're going to learn that I am not one of these high-pressure shucksters. Sign a contract right now or you'll lose everything. Or internet ads with wheelbarrows of money falling. That's not my game. Okay? You go to as many of these meetings as you want. You decide who's done the work and who's just selling. All right? But if you decide to get involved, I'll make you 3 commitments. Number 1, if you look behind you, there's a bunch of people in green shirts on both sides. If everybody just hold up your hands. One of the things that I think our operation does right in each of these 22 fires is when they happen, the first thing we do is we concentrate on why it happened. Because I want my clients to know that this is righteous litigation, not these frivolous lawsuits that you read about. Okay? And I think we're there. I'm seeing a bunch of head shakes. I think you understand we know what we're doing. We know what happened. Okay? But we have a lot of work that has to be done because in litigation, you have to prove both liability and damages. It's not enough you say my house burned down, pay me a bunch of money. You have to prove the elements of your damage. There's a very specific process that what we do well is we go to the site or adjacent to the site where the fire is, and we set up shop. And we have an office about 3 blocks from here, right next to the highway. We signed a lease. I think we're entitled to be there for 5 years. God forbid this takes that long, but we're ready to stay. We will not leave until this project is over. Those people in green shirts will be here to help you one by one by one through the process to prove up your damages because they're all different. Okay? There are very specific protocols that we follow. Number 2, a lot of those people in green shirts, you're going to learn, are your neighbors. I learned very early on, as opposed to flying my staff from Texas out here and putting them in hotels and everything like that, that we got a better result when we hired your neighbors. And so what we do is we take the people that have done all these fires, we bring them out here, we set up shop, and we start interviewing for people that we know care, that want to help their neighbors. And we've hired a load of people from right here in Altadena that have taught us the lay of the land. I already love the community, okay? Just full disclosure, the closest I'd ever been to Altadena was 3 different Rose Bowls when University of Texas was playing, okay? I love this area. I love the football that's played there, especially against USC. No offense. No, but my point is this, okay? It's a beautiful town. The people, there's a fabric here that I can just feel it's great, and this is the way you can rebuild, okay? And I'm going to take you through that. But the bottom line is that the utility is responsible, but then we're also going to prove what's called negligence, and we may be able to prove what's called gross negligence. Gross negligence entitles one to punitive damages. Negligence entitles you to non-pecuniary damages, mental anguish, loss of enjoyment of your property, all sorts of elements over and above what inverse condemnation gives you in terms of just the cost to rebuild, okay? California has wonderful law. You're entitled to full recovery. We have become expert on how to track the damages for each and every one of you, okay? We have databases that I built from scratch at costs of millions of dollars that takes in your information. And what kind of information are we talking about, okay? The bad news is you're all tragically underinsured. You just don't know it yet, okay? And I'm sorry to say that. You don't need me when you've been paying premiums to your insurance company to get them to pay you for the damage. But there are all sorts of landmines in your insurance policy that you don't know are there. Little things in some policies, well, we're not going to pay you the cost to rebuild. We're going to pay you what it was worth, which is about 40% less than the cost to rebuild. We've got a cap on contents inside the house. It's capped at $200,000. You may have $600,000 worth of stuff in there. We've got a fellow named Harold. I don't know where Harold is. There he is. Harold used to be one of those bad guys from the insurance companies that would nickel and dime you and the like, and we stole him away from the dark side and brought him to the bright side. And what he did is he designed a system for us that's just brilliant. And in effect, what I want you to do is I want you to start thinking about how are we going to prove what was in and outside your house. In 2006, when San Diego had its big fire, this was hard to do because all the photographs of the house went down with the photo albums. Now Steve Jobs invented this. We've got 3 billion of these out here. Californians have a rare character defect that when you're running for your life from a 50-foot wall of fire, you're doing what Jeffrey's over here. You're filming. It's wonderful, okay? It gives me the evidence that I need. But you also do great things like every Thanksgiving, birthday, Christmas, New Year. You're taking pictures of you and your family in those homes. And you're doing it for the smiles of the people you love. It's great. I want it not because of the smiles. I want it because of what's behind the smiles. Let me give you an example. Here's a picture of us, and I'll get pictures of all of you all. I won't put that on the internet. I'm using it as an example, okay? But what am I looking for is I'm looking behind the smiles. I'm looking for the number of chandeliers that have to be replaced. I'm looking for that railing, how long it is, digitizing it. I'm looking for the height of those curtains that have to be replaced. I'm looking for the surface area of the floor that has to be replaced. And so in effect, we go room by room through your house, through your photographs, and we reconstruct everything that was in there, item by item by item. A lot of you are having to do contents lists for your insurance companies. It's great, and I want them. But they tell you to stop when you get to your cap. We make you keep going. We have prompts. I can show you the 28 types of blenders that are available and what they cost, okay? All of the different spatulas, forks, spoons, everything. And there's just little prompts that we can go through. And then what Harold does is he takes all that, we put it into an Excel program. It's thousands of lines. And it's painful to do, and I'm sorry about that, okay? But then he goes out to the equivalent of insurance company eBay, and he prices it. And it adds up, and we get you every nickel of what was in that house. And then we go outside the house, Kids are playing in the backyard. There's a picture, I want it. I want to know the surface area of the driveway. I want to know the length of the shrubs. I want to know what was the shed, how big it was, what was in it, and the like. And so all of these photographs, you start thinking about, you're going to have to photographically recreate your life. You'll find it painful. You'll find it cathartic. But it's necessary if you want to get paid for this stuff, okay? Keep your receipts. A lot of you are in temporary housing. Document everything this cost you. I can't recover it for you unless I can prove that it happened, okay? All right, some examples of negligence. This is, we filed a lawsuit for Walt Butler and a few other people to get started. They've got 20, 30 days to answer, and then we get to send what's called discovery questions, which are called interrogatories, requests for documents, requests for production. We're not even there yet. We're just rooting around on the internet. We've already found that back in 2013, they filed what's called a notice to proceed request, an NTPR, for the removal of these transmission lines, as they should have done under the general order. And 11 years later, they haven't gotten around to it. That's not good for them. This fella who's right here in Pasadena, the line shouldn't even have been out there. They violated a rule. That's negligence per se, okay? They should have removed it. More recent problems. In March of last year, there was a CPUC audit showing violation of its general orders with respect to a failure to inspect its transmission lines. They were given remedial actions to do, but it's pretty obvious from the sloppy work that Mike found out there, they never got around to looking at this. And if they did, they consciously ignored what they saw because it's obviously not grounded correctly. And so they've got negligence problems. As recently as October of 2024, 60 to 90 days before the fire, there was a decision by the Office of Infrastructure Safety, Southern California Edison's failure to inspect transmission lines. And they were told you got to do certain things to improve access because these impacted assets still present wildfire risks. Not in the PowerPoint. In 2022, they paid a $4.5 million fine for failing to de-energize a transmission line when some poor guy climbed it and got electrocuted. So just red flag after red flag after red flag. In addition to inverse condemnation, I think we're well on our way to being able to prove negligence, and I think gross negligence is coming. It's just inexcusable what happened. In the law, they have an obligation to preserve the evidence, to not change it, to not alter it. We send out what's called a spoliation letter and all of these things, and we tell them, make sure you don't spoliate this evidence. And so this letter went out by different lawyers involved that we're working with. We've got some buddies at another firm that are all over them in court about what's called a temporary restraining order. And yesterday, we had to send out another letter with all the insurance company lawyers. And you see my signature over on the right because they spoliated the evidence. You remember that letter where they said, hey, we sent people out to watch what happens when we re-energize the lines. And there were flashes. When you re-energize the line, you create new arcing. You damage or you change the damage that's on the evidence. And so they ignored this. We described them observing a small flash of white light. Frankly, I'm kind of glad they did it because they kind of added to the evidence that this thing wasn't grounded properly. But they shouldn't have done it. They should have invited experts out there to watch it. And the bottom line is that their actions have caused additional arcing events and jeopardized the lives of individuals inspecting the preliminary area of origin and transmission lines. You might wonder why we get out there so quickly. It's to get out there and document the evidence where this kind of nonsense goes on, okay? The reason spoliation is important is under most states' laws, there may be an instruction given to juries that that evidence would have adversely impacted SCE if they hadn't spoliated. So we'll deal with that. So that's kind of what's happening right now. I'm going to give the mic back to Doug to talk about the process of what all those people in green shirts are going to do. But before I do, I just want to do this. I told you we made 3 commitments, and I've told you about the green shirts, and we're going to hire locally. We will not leave until this process is done. We've set up shop in Northern California. We stayed for years until everybody was paid. We've got an office in Maui. We were there 48 hours after that fire, collecting videos from the equivalent of Jeffrey Koo in there, proved what happened when the utility said. We still have people there helping those people through the claims process. This office is right down there on East Walnut, 221 East Walnut Road. Okay, the white building square. We've got a bunch of space, a bunch of offices. It is open to you all the time. We will be here to help you through this process if you choose to do so. But let me get Doug to show you what that process is going to look like, and then I'll come back up and take you through some of the details.
All right, guys. Incredibly patient. I was watching you all. You are fixated on what Michael is saying. I think you can understand after listening to him that he's up to the task, the work that we've done to demonstrate that. And that's why I'm so proud to be part of this entire team that's hopefully going to help this community get the resources you need to rebuild and reconstruct. But let me talk real quickly about the team here, which has been pointed out in the green shirts. These are some of just the first 8 folks that we brought on board to help this community recover, to go out and talk to the community and explain to you all what happened so that you know what your rights are and what actions you can take to get the resources to rebuild. Many of those folks are in the back of the room, and some of them you saw when you came in. All right, I'm going to talk real quickly about who qualifies to participate. You can read that, but basically if you owned property, if you owned a home that was either destroyed or damaged, whether you have insurance or you don't have insurance, you can participate. If you rented, you occupied, or you were a guest in somebody's home at the time of the fire, and you lost personal property, you qualify. So if you had a family member staying in your house and they had all their stuff in the bedroom while they were in town and it was destroyed and they fled the fire, they qualify. If you were an employee of a business that's been damaged or destroyed and you no longer have a job and you have W-2 income, you have W-2 income because they're going to require that we prove that you had that income, you qualify. If you're a commercial property owner, you'll qualify for the structure. If you leased that property to somebody else to operate a business, you'll have business income loss as well. If you owned a business inside of one of those commercial properties, there's a whole set of damages that you'll be able to collect. And the 7th one is for those 17 family members who lost someone. They qualify. All right. All I want you to know here is that within each one of those categories, there are lots of damage types. And the important thing to note is that entire group of people that you saw in the back, plus additional people that we will bring in as we get to that point in the litigation, will be there to prove every single one of those categories of damages. It's very complex. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of time. Please, when you're interviewing lawyers, ask them how many people they have on their team that can do this. This is critically important for you to get the most amount from Edison for your damages. All right, this will be really quick. I'm not going to spend a lot of time because we've spent a lot of time with you. It's Saturday morning, but I want to raise two or three topics. Debris removal should be top of mind. And look, I realize you guys are just barely getting into your homes, but they are doing debris removal already. The good news is they're trying to do this fast so that we can get to the point where you can rebuild. The thing I want you to know about this is it's done in 2 phases. You probably know the first phase, the EPA comes in, and when they finish, they put that sign up on your property. The second phase is where they take everything out, including the foundation, if you give them the right to do that. There's 2 approaches here. You can opt in and have the government do it for you, or you can do it using your own money. If you do it yourself, there are a couple risks I just want to lay out. One is you hire a contractor that doesn't do it properly, or they don't even show up and you pay them money and they're gone. So you got to be really careful. And they may not clean it to the county standards, right? So many people opt in, they give the right of entry to the government, and then you sign your insurance proceeds over to that, to the Army Corps. Okay, just be aware. And also, there is a deadline to, these are the things they remove in phase 2. And there's a deadline of March 31st to opt in. So if you miss that deadline, you're going to be doing it yourself. If you don't have insurance, you're going to have to pay for it yourself. So pay attention to that. I know it's hard. You're moving from place to place. Put in your calendar March 31 if you own your property. All right, personal property payments. These are insurance issues. Many of you, how many of you have insurance that you're dealing with? Okay. A couple things for you to know. They have to have given you 30% of your dwelling limit for your personal property. That's the first payment. If you want to go above and beyond 30%, you're going to have to work with them. They can ask you to itemize. They don't need to, but if you itemize, you're going to start from 0 all the way up to your policy limit. And Michael told you, we want you to get every single dollar from your insurance company. That's what they owe you, and you don't have to pay an attorney any of those. For any dollar you get, at least for us, we're only suing for your uninsured loss, right? So every dollar you get from your insurance company, you get to keep. ALE, they have to give you a 4 months advance to help you pay for where you're going to live. And then they are required under California law to cover for 24 months and up to 36 months, given the circumstances surrounding your rebuild. It does not increase the cap that you have on your policy, but it does extend it for 3 years. All right. What to expect next. Michael talked about our first case that we filed last week on behalf of Walt Butler, sort of a legend here in Pasadena, incredible man. It's been an honor to get to know him. And then 2 other of your neighbors, Luis and Denise Gonzalez, who actually live right on the backside of where Walt lives. Michael talked about Edison will have 30 days to respond to this. One thing that happens in this complex litigation when you have hundreds or thousands of people making claims is they will ultimately consolidate it into one action, which will make, hopefully, it be more efficient and maybe go faster. All right, now is the part that I really was waiting to get to. Tia, where are you? Oh, here you are. Come over, Tia. So bear with us. You guys have been incredibly patient, but I want you to see how we go in real life, how we handle a community and how we work with the people that have been impacted in the community. This is Tia Rivera. She's sitting right here. She is from Maui. And she'll tell you a little bit about her story, but she was impacted and her family was impacted. And I want to show this video, and then she's going to say a few words. So thanks.
My name is Tiara Rivera. I am local, born and raised here on Maui. I am a mother of 2 young boys. I was in Kona and I was flying home after a day of work, and to see to the left side of the plane, all I saw was the black funnel of smoke coming from Lahaina that just didn't look normal. But now I was like, what is going on? There's Lahaina fire, like that you could see it, and like immediate panic. And all I could think about was my grandmother and my family, that she's 89, she doesn't move around much. It's terrifying. You don't know, you don't know what's going on. I'm still in pieces. We all are. Since the fires, the only thing that my heart and energy wanted to do was to serve my community, to help. And I really wanted to hear the hearts behind the team. So for me, the choice to work with Hiko Lawsuit, first and foremost, they walked the walk. They didn't come into our community like, this is how we're gonna do it. They have the know-how, they have the understanding. Unfortunately, they have been through other fires, other wildfires and devastations that have taken out towns just like it did to Lahaina. So they understand what this journey is gonna look like. I'm ready to fight. The war paint is on. It's January 2025, and went to the property just this past Friday, and Lahaina's, it's coming along. We're in the rebuilding process, and it's exciting to see the building that's happening and the movement that's continuing forward. It's obviously we'd like to be a lot further than we are, but I'm excited that we are moving in a positive direction. It's a long road ahead, and I'm grateful to be where we are today. I know 18 months ago we were in a lot scarier place, and there wasn't a lot of hope. But today, January 2025, I'm hopeful that we're rebuilding Lahaina and that we're going to come back stronger. Something that I could lean on and trust about this team was that they've done it before. They've helped the Paradise Fires. They came down and they have helped our Lahaina community and our Kula community here on Maui, and they're still here. They haven't left like they promised when they first landed. They said, we're here and we're gonna be here to the end. They're still here, they still have an office on Maui, and they're still plugging away, and they've earned my trust, they've earned my family's trust, and we believe in them, and we're grateful for them that they came down to our community and helped us at a time when we were really lost.
You okay? Okay. Okay, I would like Tia just to say a few words about her experience on Maui.
I'll use this one. Oh, it doesn't get any easier. It's been 18 months. I gave the same share last night, and I thought this morning was going to be easier. Yeah, I'm here. I'm here for you, Altadena. I come with love from Maui, and that we're standing with you. My message today was to just share that we were in a similar space and time just 18 months ago, which feels like forever, but also feels like a blink of an eye. And this same team, this Doug, came to Maui, Michael, Harold, Jordy, the same people that are standing in this room came to my community and took us by the hand when we were lost and helped my family. I had 18 family members that lost their homes. My dad lost his fishing boat, and we lost our community, our childhood memories, just like you. So this is the team that helped us get through it and get to where we are today, and there's hope. It's a long, tough road ahead, but I encourage you to lean into this team for resources, get answers. There's power in knowing what's happening in your community, that you guys can stand up just like we did and fight for your community as well, because only you guys will fight for Altadena like no other. And I know the people of Maui have been fighting for Lahaina these last 18 months and will continue fighting. And so I just come with love that we're standing with you, and this team has helped me, and I'm super confident that they're gonna help you as well in this journey ahead. So continue to fight, continue to put your war paint on. Mahalo.
Proud to be able to work with Tia. We also have another member of our Maui team, Suzanne Conlon, who's here training our staff. And these are the people from that community. You'll have people from your community, and we'll be here till the end. Just so you know, this is the rest of the beautiful team in Maui that we have been working with for 19 months. And as Michael said, that settlement is on its way, $4 billion, to try to help give the resources to the community to rebuild.
If I could. Each of you have a folder, and let me just kind of take you through that. Pastor said that if you have questions, I'm here to answer them. But what we learned last night is everybody has different situations, and some people don't want to ask those questions publicly. The people in the green shirts are back there. Write them down. If you choose to get involved with us, and I am not telling you to do this today, okay? You can. We've already filed a lawsuit. We've got the vehicle we need to get going. But at the same time, I can tell you, I've been through this gauntlet with Southern California Edison before, most recently in the Bobcat fire, where we represented several hundred people on the other side of the mountain. They do it in order. They resolve the cases in a certain order. You have up to 3 years to file a lawsuit in California. I'm not telling you to do it today, okay? But if you wait 3 years, you're going to be in the back of the line. And so just know that. What I've learned in doing this a lot is, number one, science wins fire lawsuits against giant utilities, and I think you can tell we have it. Number two, vigilant work, one by one by one by one, allows us to get to the settlement table. I try cases all the time. Until a bout of influenza A last week, I was supposed to be in a jury trial in Colorado this week. It got pushed, my involvement got pushed, and it's good because I'm here. But if you open this folder, you're going to see information about me, about Doug, about Erin, but what I really want to talk to you about is something on the right side. This is how you get involved if you choose to. Look, I've been on the ground. This is my 4th trip out here since this fire. I see all the TV ads. I see all the internet garbage that you're getting. Beware of law firms from out of state, out of town, even local law firms that are hitting you with 20-page contracts full of Latin to show you how smart they are. You can probably tell I try to speak plainly. This is a 1-page contract if you choose to get involved. Here's how you do it. It's got 8 paragraphs, and let me just tell you what it is. Paragraph 1 says the firm's authority. If you choose to hire us, you are giving us authority to do what we did for Walt Butler, and that is to file a lawsuit or a claim on your behalf. You're relying upon my experience, Doug's experience, our legal judgment to pass the course of the litigation, to know who to take depositions and the like. One thing we do really good is we update our clients. We owe you the duty of fidelity and honesty, but also the duty of communication. I want your cell phone numbers. I will not sell them. I will not share them. I want your email addresses, because what I've learned is it takes about 52 cents, maybe it's 60 now, I don't even know, to put a stamp on an envelope. Sometimes it takes 6-8 days to deliver it. Gets lost in the mail 22% of the time. And so I believe in email and text updates. I can videotape little updates outside the courthouse and send it to everybody via text and the like. So the firm's authority just says, look, you're hiring us to pursue this claim against Southern California Edison. To be clear, you're not hiring us to fight with your insurance company, okay? You can do that without a lawyer. You have really good law here in California. We can help you through it, but that's not what you need us for, okay? You need us to recover from the utility. The second paragraph is really important. I talked about liability and damages. I think you can tell we've already kind of got the liability figured out. The damages, I can't prove your lawsuit for you because I don't know anything about your damages. So we have to do this one by one where we're working as a team. You're cooperating with us. That cooperation largely comes in 2 forms. I must know how to get a hold of you, which is why I really don't care about, mailing addresses. I want them. But you all are displaced. You're going to move on average 2 or 3 times before you get back into a rebuilt home, okay? Those phones go with you. The cell phone goes with you. The email goes with you. The mail is going to get caught in some trap, and you're just going to get lost, and I don't want that to happen, okay? So cooperation is in large part staying in touch with us. You know where the office is. Our team will be there for years if it takes it, okay? We'll call you in to do one-on-one meetings and the like. And part 2 of the cooperation is help us prove your damages. We know how to get it out of you. I've already given you the hint from the standpoint of cell phone photos and the like. It's a very laborious process. This is not a lawsuit lottery. It is not a free lunch. It's work. Okay? Be ready for it. Step 3 is called a contingent fee arrangement. Now, what does that mean? Beware of lawyers that try to say, hey, just pay me by the hour and I'll take care of this for you. It'll be cheaper, okay? Don't pay anybody that won't guarantee victory before they get paid, all right? We only get paid if we recover for you. The contingent fee is 1/3 of the recovery. All the different law firms involved split that in the way that's described. But the good news is, under California's inverse condemnation law, we tack attorney's fees on top of the cost. They have to pay your attorney's fees on top of the cost to rebuild your home, which is a great thing about California law. Paragraph 4 is expenses. I have New York bankers that loan me hundreds of millions of dollars to do these big mass tort cases. Each of you will have an account in effect. I'll use my full faith and credit with those guys to front the money, but they have to be paid back. The expenses come in two categories. One is what I call the general expense. It's what Mike Schultz has been doing out there. His work applies equally for every one of our clients. The good news is that through something called economies of scale, we can keep those expenses real low. And I use the example of him canvassing the mile area around the Tubbs fire for 6 months. I'm going to throw out a hypothetical number. He charged me $1 million for that. And if he didn't charge that much, he damn sure was worth it, okay? If you were my only client and you had to pay a 1/3 fee and repay $1 million, that would swamp the boat. You wouldn't recover anything. But we had 2,000 clients in the Tubbs fire, and so each and every one of your neighbors got the world's best fire cause and origin expert for $500. Economies of scale, okay? We've had 3 or 4 experts. We've had an electrical engineer. We've had the guys that did the pixelation out there. That's all general expenses, which is why we do all these meetings. What I encourage people is, you've heard about the conscience of the community. Do this as a community. Tell people what you saw here today. Text 10 people and say, go see these people. They can make their own decision. We'll continue to do these meetings, but there's value to not having 10,000 people go to 10,000 lawyers who are going to hire 10,000 different experts, because everybody's going to have their own individual expenses. There's no efficiency there. If you have a large group, and we tend to end up representing more people in all of these fires than any other law firm, because we do these meetings over and over and over again. And I encourage you to go to everybody else's meeting if you want to, okay? Make a decision, but do it together with your neighbors, because you get that efficiency, that economy of scale, okay? Paragraph 4 is we're going to repay those expenses. I can tell you that historically, I can keep those expenses down to about 2, 3, 4%, sometimes 5% of your recovery. So you take off 1/3 for fees, you're going to recover about 65 cents on the dollar, 63, 64. But remember, that's tacked on top, where Southern California Edison has to pay the fees, right? So that's good. But in order to do that, we have to have your permission. Paragraph 5. I'm realizing that I've been doing this too long and my eyes have departed from me. Paragraph 5 is multiple clients. This is an ethical rule, and what it says is that I'm permitted to represent more than one person, but I have to tell you that I'm doing it, and I'm telling you that I'm doing that, and you have to give me permission to do that you're one of many people I'm representing. Why do you do that? To achieve the economies of scale, to get a $500, all-time expert, right? And so paragraph 5, if you sign this, I have disclosed it to you. You've given me permission. I can tell you we already represent a lot of your neighbors. We'll end up representing thousands, but you'll achieve the economies of scale. Paragraph 6 is a new one, artificial intelligence. We all know what this is in the last 2 or 3 years. It's a new thing. It's incredible. And we can drive efficiencies. So sometimes we use artificial intelligence with your data to get us to the end very quickly. We'll do it in a protected way, but the ethics guys tell me we need to tell you we're going to do that and get your permission, okay? Paragraph 7 is law and venue. This is what I want you to really watch out for. When we started doing this, there were like 3 or 4 law firms that called themselves wildfire lawyers, and we came in and kind of did it better. And we did this settlement. I was personally across the table with PG&E's negotiator and negotiated the $13.5 billion settlement. There's lots of people that say they did that, but trust me, I can tell you where we were. I can show you the pictures. It was a big deal. And after a $13.5 billion settlement, the whole world wants to be a wildfire lawyer now, right? And just ask them, where's your office? Who are the people in the office? Who are your experts? And if they tell you we're waiting around for CAL FIRE, you probably ought to go to the next lawyer, okay? But if they tell you, hey, sign this 16-page contract with a bunch of Latin in it so that I can show you how smart I am, run. And if they ask you to agree that if you all have a dispute, you'll arbitrate, do it in secret so you don't embarrass them by filing a lawsuit against them, run. If they tell you, hey, I'm from Florida, you have to come to Florida to sue me, knowing damn well that you can't afford to hire a law firm halfway across the country to sue a law firm, don't agree to that. This contract says if you and I have a dispute, you sue me right here in Los Angeles County. If I did it, I'll pay you. If I didn't do it, I'll come defend myself. And we don't get sued very often at all because we don't make mistakes because we follow a strict protocol, okay? We'll do the job well. Important to me, it's no solicitation of the client. This is the rule against ambulance chasing. I am not an ambulance chaser. I want to shoot the people that do that. People do not have a right to knock on your door and ask to be your lawyer. What they can do is they can put out media, invite you to a public town hall meeting where you can listen. You make the volitional choice whether you want to be involved. If you sign this contract, you're acknowledging that we did it the right way. Sign it and date it. Do not sign up with multiple law firms. It creates a mess. The backside is just as important as the front side. And what it is I need your signature. Once the signature happens, I need a signature for each individual in the house. We'll countersign it. It'll be a computer signature of mine, and then we'll send it back to you so that we have a contract, okay? We need the client's main email, not because I'm gonna sell the list, but because I'm gonna email update to you. Doug sends out one, I think it's once a week. We just try to stay in touch so we make sure you're informed. What's your main phone number? Please don't give me the house number if you have a cell number, okay? And you know why. The damage address, I need to know where the house was, whether you rented or owned. Tell me where you were. I need to know where you are now. That's your mailing address. And then when it changes, you need to call us and tell us that. I need to know the full name, the date of birth, and the relationship to you of everybody that was in that house. Why do we do that? You were not the only people traumatized. And you are traumatized. I'm looking at a room full of people that, whether you admit it or not, are suffering PTSD. God did not wire us to run for our lives from a 50-foot wall of fire. Work on that. Go to group. See a priest. See a pastor. See a psychologist, a psychiatrist, whatever you need, work on it. Don't let this fire eat you up emotionally for the rest of your life. You can come out of this, but you have to work on it. But along with you, there are things in houses called children. If you have children that ran for their lives and are under the age of 18, you should file suit on their behalf as next friend under California law. This is really important because we put a lot of kids through college through the PG&E settlement, okay? They are entitled to recover as well. Their money goes into a trust. There's different rules, but it's something I want you to keep in mind, okay? And in addition to working on the lawsuit for your kids, work on your kids. Give them the same therapy and work that you're going to do to get through your PTSD. We have some questions at the bottom. Was the property damaged or destroyed? I need to know whether it's fully burned down or partially. What was your relationship to the property? Lots of people in California own houses through trusts. If it is, the trust is the named plaintiff. If you're a renter, tell me who the owner is and the like. Do you have a business or commercial property that was damaged or destroyed? We've represented thousands of businesses. Those claims are largely the structure that burned down, the cost to replace it, and the loss of income during the time that the business is not operating, okay? What was your place of employment destroyed? I want to know that, okay? Even if it's not your business, if you lost your income because the business shut down because of this fire, you have a claim. Did you or anybody on the property suffer a physical injury from the fires that resulted in hospitalization? I met a gentleman last night who lost his wife. That's called a wrongful death case. There are 17 of those. There's also a number of people that sustained physical burn injuries. We have a completely different protocol for that. We need to order the medical records. We need to assist you from the standpoint of treatment to make that better. All of you suffered a psychological injury, okay? Work on it. It's good for your lawsuit that you worked on it. It's good for you, which is really why I want you to do it, okay? Lastly, did anybody in your family pass away because of the fires? If that happened, you have my deepest condolences. There are certain capacity issues. We have to set up an estate to get permission from a probate court to file the lawsuit. That takes time and the like, okay? Again, if you want to get involved, this is how you do it. You put it in the mail to us. We're going to need things like your ID, photographic proof of who you are, okay? Because I want to make sure that somebody's not signing up for somebody else. That's all. We're not going to give it away or anything like that, okay? So that concludes what we have to say. Doug's going to say something real quick. Oh, those are the questions?
No, we told you fill out the cards. So Michael, they're a handful, and I've read them, and I think we can go through them pretty quickly, and then we will stop. And anyone in a green shirt, or Michael, or me, or Schultz, will be available to talk to you about anything you want to talk about, okay? So I'm going to read them. My house didn't burn, but my family's business was destroyed. It's a total loss. I don't have enough insurance. What should I do?
Okay. Nobody has enough insurance unless you're one of the lucky ones. I'm just sorry about that, okay? If you have insurance, work with your insurance companies. I have a lower opinion of insurance company than your average Joe. Some of them are good. A lot of them aren't. She says, no, they're not. I agree with you. You know, look, my advice there is, look, when you call an insurance company agent and they say they're going to do something, presume that they're going to hang up the phone and forget about your call. Ask who you're talking to, document it in an email, send them a confirmatory email every time you talk. Okay? Keep a copy of that email. After you ask them to do something, they say they'll do it by next Tuesday. Next Tuesday comes and passes and they blew you off. You write them again on Wednesday and you do it again with another email. The squeaky wheel gets the most grease when you're dealing with insurance companies. Be the squeaky wheel is my advice, okay? Work it. You have really good law here in California that keeps insurance companies from tooling you around. They'll try anyway, but the threat of you suing them is there. Generally, you can talk them into doing the right thing, okay? What we're doing is separate and apart from that. We're getting all of the damages from the utility. The insurance company will pay you the part that they owe you and seek to recover that back from the utility in their own lawsuit. We'll work together with them. They're experts, and Schultz are up on the mountain together. We're working together. They know we know what we're doing. We know they know what they're doing. So we work on this. And get with us, and we'll proceed forward with the lawsuit. Go ahead.
All right. I also, if those of you who are insured, there's a group called United Policyholders. They represent insured people. Amy Bach is their executive director. I've served with her on the trust oversight committee for the $13.5 billion settlement up north. She's fantastic, and United Policyholders website has a ton of information. Please use it, okay? And the next question is, how do I volunteer with LA Fire Justice? Jordy, can you raise your hand? Whoever wrote that card, please go see Jordy about the opportunities to come work with our organization.
Hey, can I brag on Jordy just for a second?
Yeah.
Jordy's a guy from Texas. I used to have an office in Brownsville, Texas, and he worked there. And what's going on 8 years ago, he found out we were going out to work on these fires, and he volunteered to move. And he's never been back to Texas. He won't leave the States. The only exit from California has been a temporary gig in Hawaii to help those people. This man has just got good bones, and he does the things, he does a good job, he wants to help, and he does it for the right reasons. So Jordy, thank you. Keep going.
Okay, next question, is this a class action?
No. A class action is one lawyer with one client says, I want to pretend that I'm representing everybody, and they run down to the court and ask for a class to be certified and pretend they represent everybody. Fortunately for you, you didn't hire them. You didn't ask for them, and there's strict rules about what has to be done before a class can be certified. Your damages are all different. These things don't work as a class. Sometimes we use a class vehicle to settle them out of bankruptcy, but individual lawsuits is what this is. It's what we call a mass tort because you have a massive number of people with the same or similar cause of action. Mass tort, not class action.
Okay. I think you answered this question when you went through the contract. What percentage of the award do you take? 33 1/3%. How much time do you anticipate it will take to complete the settlement?
Depends on Southern California Edison. One of the reasons that I've jumped in their face And God bless your media here in the Los Angeles market. They have, I mean, man, when we put the stuff out, they test it, right? The Washington Post, make sure that it wasn't, something that was weather related. They call experts, they make sure that we know what we're talking about, but after a while they build up trust, right? The status of where we are on liability is so far along, 31 days in, that everything else that we're going to do is really to prove up their negligence and their gross negligence, not did the fire start their equipment. So that's good. We waited over a year for CAL FIRE to tell us the Tubbs fire wasn't caused by PG&E. And then Schultz had to get in and show them why they were wrong, okay? And I'm not criticizing CAL FIRE, great organization, okay? But we do our own work. Because of that, we'll start filing lawsuits. There will be what's called a coordination. It's not a consolidation into one lawsuit. So all the lawsuits get thrown together for pretrial purposes so that we only depose the CEO one time. We only depose the line engineer one time. It's very efficient, and then you spit it out for settlement. I can tell you that one of the things that I've kind of become very involved in is because I tend to represent a whole lot of people, the defendants want to come talk to me. They reach out to me. I end up negotiating these settlements together with a few other people that are really good lawyers. I gave the liability presentation with all the same LiDAR stuff that showed a wooden pole snapping in high winds that led to the fire in Lahaina. We proved it up in the same way with a bunch of videos from people like Jeffrey Koo on Maui. Doug and I were in a bar collecting videos 72 hours after that fire from 20 different witnesses. So we got a protocol, and they know that it works, and they know that we know what we're talking about. So eventually, they're going to come to us and want to settle these cases. I can't tell you how long that will take. I'd be a liar, okay? I can tell you that I'm very proud that we got the Maui case settled inside of 1 year. That took gubernatorial leadership. Governor Josh Green out there was instrumental. You have an effective governor in wildfire matters in Gavin Newsom. I don't like to do politics in these things, but I'm telling you, I watched him in PG&E versus the other guy. He was effective, and he forced them to do all sorts of stuff. And I have hope because of that experience there that things are going to happen here. You've already heard about the state of California waived a bunch of permitting so that we could get things started and like that. You live and learn, and they're getting better. They really are. And so we're going to need the state's involvement. Anything that we do that uses this corporation's resources, the CPUC is involved. They administratively kind of have to get involved. We had to get all these approvals before the $13.5 billion settlement was approved in PG&E. Ultimately, the governor will be involved because you've heard of AB 1054, this $20.5 billion risk-sharing fund. Your state assemblyman wrote it. Well, until recently, I think he just got term limited out, okay? But that happened right here. And I met with him yesterday. Chris is brilliant. And that bill is really important for several reasons, okay? It creates a pot of money with which Southern California Edison can pay these claims and seek reimbursement, okay? It makes it financially viable to the industry. So that pot of money is important. It will accelerate things, but I can't tell you how long this will take. I've had these cases take 3 years. I've had some of them take 4. I've had some of them take less than a year. I can just tell you we're off to a heck of a good start because I don't think we're going to be debating liability for very long. Yes.
Reimbursement.
No, from the state's AB 1054 pool. So insurance is different. If the insurance company pays you, I'm just going to use an example. They pay you $500,000 for a house that's worth $1 million, whatever, okay? They'll pay you that $500,000, then they'll sue the utility to try to get it back in what's called a subrogation action. If you look at the fine print in your insurance policy, you give them the right to go chase third parties that require them to make that payment. It helps keep premium down. So we'll have our lawsuit for you for everything you didn't get from the insurance companies. They'll have their lawsuit for everything they paid you. We're kind of working together, okay? In PG&E, for example, in 2017-18, the people recovered $13.5 billion. The insurance companies got $11 billion back. It was about a $25 billion settlement, okay? Here, we've done Thomas, we've done Woolsey, we've done Bobcat, Eaton, the thing in Maui. The same thing's always the same, okay? They'll bring their own lawsuit. We work together on liability. We have a little scrum at the end about how much do they get. Because, our position is if they dig too deep, those are dollars out of your pocket, and we don't want that. That's the problem in Maui, to be honest with you. It's more of a limited fund. Here, because of the AB 1054, I'm less worried about that. We'll work more cooperatively with them. Okay?
All right. I'm going to take this one, Michael, because it's on the public policy front. How do we prevent small or large investment companies from coming in and buying up our parcels and creating damaging the character of Altadena? All right, so lawyers can do some things, and Michael has laid out exactly what we do, and lawyers are not so good at other things. I happen to work in both straddle the line, kind of, between public policy and law, right? I've done that for my career. Look, the community is going to need to come together to do a lot of different things. Monitor air quality, soil quality, water, right? You guys have to band together, and you have to demand that what they're doing, the US EPA or a Cal EPA, and they're being honest and transparent about what they're testing, when they're testing, where they're testing, okay? This issue, and I've heard this from multiple clients and other people, that there are people calling you and texting you every day, or if you're at your property sifting through your ash, there's a guy handing you a card and say, I want to buy your property. You have to stand strong. You have to say no, okay? That's the first thing. The second thing to do is, there is currently a special session of the legislature going on for other reasons, but wildfire response is one of the primary goals of that. There are methodologies that we can pursue to try to protect predatory purchasing, and I would encourage you to reach out to your elected officials and demand that they try to figure out how to stop it. It is absolutely not allowed. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen, right? People are at their lowest moments when their bank accounts are drained and someone is walking up to them and offering them some paltry amount of money, saying, this land isn't worth anything anymore. It's all ash and rubble. Do not buy it. This is an incredible community. Your land is valuable. It retains its value because of where you're located. And it will come back just like Maui's coming back and just like Santa Rosa has come back. But I need you to get together and demand that there be some action to prosecute these predators, quite frankly. So
over and above the bad form of people trying to predatorily buy your property, this was a big deal in Lahaina as well, which is super historic. It used to be the capital of the Kingdom of Hawaii, so there's lots of cultural implications. But the same thing, this is your home. Don't let anybody come in and pick you off. But it also affects you financially. California has good law. In the state where I'm from, you don't get the cost to rebuild the property. You get the value of the property the day before the fire. There's a 40 to 50% difference between the two. In California, you will only get rebuild costs if you have a present intention to rebuild. If you sell your property, that's pretty good evidence you don't have an intent to rebuild. So you're going to get the lower damages and get squeezed on a predatory price. Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry, my eyes are going too. My husband. I'm good. Michael, we got this question last night, and it revolves around first responders. This question is about, did the lack of firefighting cause my house to burn down? And I know there's lots of discussion about what firefighters did or didn't do. And I know you've answered this question numerous times, so I'm going to let Michael talk about it from the legal perspective. And also, yeah.
Let me address two things. There are a lot of questions about what happened, who didn't get warned and why. Areas of this town that didn't get the evacuation warning are the locations where 15 of the 17 deaths were. It's inexcusable. It's bordering on a civil rights violation. that is a political issue, and you can vote people out of office, and should if you feel like that's what you need to do. It's real hard to recover for that in a court of law. It deals with separation of powers. You have the executive branch, you have the legislative, and you have the judicial. The judicial branch has a doctrine known as discretionary function immunity, where the courts are not allowed to second guess the discretionary calls of our elected officials and their administrators. And I know this because in Santa Rosa, some very nice guy that I met knew the fire was coming over the mountain in the middle of the night and didn't set off the town sirens because he didn't want to cause a panic. And he cost 34 people their lives, full stop. But the law is he made an administrative judgment. I think it was wrong, but you can't recover for it, okay? In Tia's town, there is a very nice guy that didn't set off the town siren. Most of the people that die are elderly. They don't get the word, or they're caught in the car on the way out. In most states, including California, this is super hard to sue the local first responders or the like, okay? There were a bunch of people in Maui that wanted to sue the Maui Fire Department. They put out a fire, didn't really put it out, it rekindled and then burned down. You know, the law out there was about the same. You can't sue firefighters for this kind of stuff. There are exceptions and the like, but as much as I'd love to take, because I know it would make you feel good, because there were huge mistakes made that cost people their lives. I mean, there's just no nice way to put it, okay? But the bottom line is that those mistakes would not have been causative but for a fire that began because of this utility. And we're not in a limited fund situation. This utility has all the resources we need to recover for your damages. And so my advice to you, and second guess, I mean, go talk to other lawyers, and maybe I'm wrong, okay? I don't think I am. My advice to you is let's keep our eye on the ball of the utility. And then when it comes time to vote, or to do civic advocacy, or to do what Erin does, let's get some justice on this. You know, it's real hard to justify why this side of town didn't get a warning, okay?
All right, there's one more question, which was, how does my business get the resources it needs to stay open? I don't know all the facts about that, but if whoever wrote that question wants to come and talk to me about it, I would say the SBA is probably a good place to turn with low interest loans if you can afford that. Yes, sir. Yeah, I mean, that's a political decision. Obviously, things in Washington I'm not going to get into. You probably know my feelings based on who I'm related to. But I think, I don't know if it's going to be forgiven or not. I think you have to assume it won't for your purposes, right? Take the less risky path forward. They are very low interest rates, and they extend over 30 years. So you should be able to spread that across if that's what you need, but you have to make the determination as a business person whether or not it makes the most sense for you. And I know there are lots of other pots of monies available, granting and grant funds, and we on our website will be posting all of these resources. So if you want to come to lafirejustice.com, the resources button, it should help you.
Guys,
Okay.
take the resources, whether it's FEMA, SBA loans, whatever. Those resources are there for things like this. Use them, okay? After we settled the Northern California fires case for $13.5 billion, I had a lot of egg on my face because FEMA made a claim with that pot for $4.5 billion of it. And everybody's like, you gave it all to FEMA, you know, and we were told that they would forego it. But at the time, their lawyers were saying, you know, and during first President Trump, they gave it up, okay? We can't predict that that's gonna happen, but the money in hand from SBA loans, from FEMA grants, whatever you can get it in your hand so you can use it. We'll worry about whether we have to reimburse it later.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'll take the two questions. Can you mind if I'll talk to you afterwards? A couple things. There's food back there, and there are boxes to take it to go. Please take a meal if you want to. We are so appreciative of you taking the time to be here today. I only have one final parting message, and then Michael will say some words. Look, everyone, whether you had insurance or you don't have insurance, you're not going to have enough resources unless you stick it to this utility and do it for two reasons. One, because what Michael told you, this is not a company with clean hands. They should have done something and they didn't, and you're sitting here facing this issue. The other reason is, unless you all do this together, this town, this community is going to have a real hard time having the funds necessary to keep what was so special about it here. So whether you go with us or you go with someone else, I hope what you've learned today is that we got the goods on them, and now it's just up to all of us to make sure everyone takes the action necessary to hold them accountable. So with that, I'll turn it over to Michael, and thank you guys for being here.
Two things in leaving, just one request. Take that phone that you have and text 10 of your friends. Tell them what you learned here today. Tell them how to get a hold of us. We're happy to talk to them. The more you band together, the more efficient this is going to go. We will be back. I know that I am back here. I'm taking next week off in a journey to try to keep my marriage alive on Valentine's Day. But on the 21st, I'll be here because we're doing meetings out here on my way to Hawaii to speak to my clients out there on the 22nd. We'll be back here again on the 27th and 28th. And right after this meeting, they're going to give me a bunch of dates that we're going to be out here in March. We will do this over and over and over again. But please, thank you for coming and spending what's over 2 hours getting this information. I know this was long. It's long on purpose. They won't all be long. But tell your neighbors about this.
I said we were done, but actually someone raised the question. It's actually kind of important for you and your neighbors. The question is, what happens if someone's an undocumented person and they've lost everything in the fire and they're afraid to come forward? What's your advice?
So here's my advice. Come forward. Tell us about it. I have the ability to sequence what I do and when I do it. And these things tend to settle all together. To be honest with you, the statute of limitations, the deadline to file it doesn't pass till 3 years after the fire, okay? But I want you to start working on the contents and all the work that we're gonna do, because we have to put the damages together. I only need Walt Butler's lawsuit to have the right to take all the depositions that I wanna take to prove up how they screwed up, right? So we can sequence who files a lawsuit and who doesn't for any reason, okay? I've had clients who have relatives that work for PG&E, didn't want to sue them. So we brought them in, we worked it up just like a lawsuit, and they made a claim against the settlement fund. It's disturbing to me what's going on with, what this country is doing to its undocumented folks. They're our brothers and our sisters in Christ, and it bugs me. I know how to handle that, and I know how to protect them against, the fear of ICE raids and the like, and we'll be but you need to tell us, okay? And we'll just wait, and we'll put those in the chute as if there is a lawsuit rolling, but we'll take our time, okay? And most of the cases that we do, we represent thousands of people. Only a handful of them actually get ready to go to trial because there's not enough courts in California to try all these cases, and so you have to select what's called test cases or bellwether cases. Your odds of being that bellwether trial is about the same as getting struck by lightning. But somebody has to be struck by lightning. Somebody's got to go first. We try to pick the very best one. It's usually a community leader. If you're asking me, Walt would be great, and the like. But my point is that one of you leads for the good of everybody, okay? But we have the ability to kind of keep things in the shadows to protect people that need that protection, okay? Glad you asked that question. Thanks for coming, guys.